Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. This is season 5 of Tips for the Transition. And in case you've never watched this podcast before, have been the number one most watched podcast on Voice America TV for 15 months running, and we're so honored to be able to say that. And we're now expanding our reach into this live arena on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, going live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And we'll also be sharing these podcasts to the audio channels, all of them from Apple and Google and Stitcher and Spotify and all of those. So I hope you enjoy these weekly conversations with inspiring women who share their wisdom and their stories with us to inspire us and to help women become more confident, resilient, and brave in their careers and in indeed their lives. I'm your host, Maria Tomás-Keegan. I'm a career and life coach for women. And I want you to know that our intention for each episode is to create resources for people to navigate better uh, the, um, their lives and their careers. So if anything, as we're having this conversation, strikes a nerve for you, please look in the episode description and look for the links for my guest and for me so that you can check out our free books and trainings and everything that you can see on our website and connect with us. And be sure to check out my free and private Facebook group that's called the Career Transition Roadmap. So we'd be delighted to continue the conversation with you there. So let's get started. Today's guest is Margo Garcia, and we are talking about something that I will bet will hit a nerve with many of you who are watching and listening. Have you ever complained about being too busy? Have you kind of worn it as a badge of honor? Have you compared with your friends how busy you are compared to how busy they are? Yeah, so you're not alone. We're all very busy. We're all wearing lots of different hats. And Margo is a shining example of that uh, by her own admission. And it's why I invited her to talk with us today, because I believe it's time for us all to take a pause and examine what we're doing to ourselves when we do that. So let me tell you just a little bit about Margo. She is the founder of Great Leader Coaching and Gap Associates, which is an HR consulting firm. As a coach, Margo works with managers to help them become great leaders, deepening their self-awareness, leveraging strengths, enhancing their presence, and increasing their leadership effectiveness. As an HR consultant, Margo brings over 25 years as an HR practitioner, coach, and trainer to individuals looking to demonstrate leadership know-how and to HR organizations wanting to bring a powerful people-first perspective to the business. Now, Margo has done extensive research on this topic of busy is the new lazy, and she's spoken to a number of groups and on podcasts about this topic. So I'm delighted to have her come share her wisdom with us. So it won't surprise you that the title of this episode is Busy is the New Lazy. So let me bring Margo on and share the stage with me. Hello, Margo.
Hi, Maria. Thank you so much for sharing your audience with me.
Oh, it is my pleasure, and we are just delighted to have you with us. So let's get this conversation started, okay? So I
Absolutely.
said that you've done some research about this busy is the new lazy. So What is that all about? Tell us what that is.
Well, I chose the word lazy very intentionally. It's a charged word. It implies idleness and lack of action, and there's some real negativity there. You're putting something off, you're procrastinating, you're avoiding something. And I believe that the opposite is also true, that being crazy busy or overscheduled or overcommitted can be a form of procrastination and avoidance as well. And my work on the topic came about because I was looking for answers as to how my life had gotten so out of whack.
I love that. And I love that you admitted that. Because I think, and it's a great description, your life getting out of whack, out of balance. I hate the word balance. I don't really believe there is such a thing. I know we're going to talk about that. But tell me about how can someone tell? How do they recognize if this concept of being busy and it maybe being the new lazy, how might that apply to them? How do they recognize that?
Maria, I will share 3 things that I used to say all the time, and let me know if they resonate with you, and perhaps your audience. Do you know someone, or have you ever said, I am crazy busy. I've got way too much to do, and there's never enough time to get everything done? Yeah,
Absolutely.
I hear a lot of people saying that. How about, I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel, running hard, but I'm not getting anywhere?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the third one is, and this is the sad one, is this all there is? I've worked so hard to get everything I thought I ever wanted. I've got it. Why am I so unhappy?
Yeah, absolutely. All of
So I complained and struggled with all 3 of those. And because I was always at work, I was never home. And if I was totally exhausted. I was wearing, as you said in the opening, being busy and in demand and needed as a badge of honor. You know, look how successful I am. Look how important my job is. Now, I really loved my job. I was really good at it. It made me feel purposeful and important. And that's how I made my money. You know, it funded my lifestyle of the nannies and the private schools and the trips to Hawaii every year. But I'd have whole conversations with other successful people about who was busier. And somehow the person with the least amount of sleep, the one who was most sleep deprived, was the winner. I mean, it was total insanity. I would tell you from my heart that my family was the most important thing to me. But if you looked at my calendar and where I was and how I spent my time, it wasn't with them. So I started doing the research and the and digging, if you will, to figure out why I was so out of balance, so out of integrity with myself, and I was miserable. So again, the research, the writing started as a self-help project for myself. What I came to realize is that if busyness is about avoidance and procrastination, and by definition, laziness is about avoidance and procrastination, I came up with the busy is lazy.
That makes a lot of sense. There is I can see the correlation there. So it sounds to me as though you were not honoring your values and you were looking, your family first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were looking for some sort of, I call it harmony, not balance, but work-life balance is a probably overused term. But
Agreed.
is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, I don't think there is such a thing as you're alluding to as a work-life balance, because we just have one life and we have choices that we make. You know, it isn't the doctors who are pulling back-to-back shifts in the OR or, you know, ICU or whatever. And it isn't people who are commuting by bus to 3 different minimum wage jobs. They're not the ones complaining about being busy. They're just dog tired. They're exhausted. The people I typically hear complaining about being busy are those who are busy by choice. They're people who fear that idleness is bad, or they believe that the happiness is in the hustle. They're addicted to their busyness and afraid of what they might find in the absence of it. Typically, I hear people complaining about being super busy. Again, they're busy by choice. I know that when I was going through my struggles, I didn't need balance. I needed to slow down. I needed to breathe so I could make sense of the choices that I'd made that had gotten me to that place and make some different choices going forward so that my life would make sense to me.
That's great. And the awareness piece of that, and being busy by choice, I think that's a very important piece of what you're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about the choices we make. So if we
Absolutely.
are choosing to be busy, what are we giving up instead?
Well, yeah, sanity.
A
I,
lot. I mean, and
I'll
a lot of other stuff, right?
Yeah. I started, I mean, when I got into this whole thing, I really needed to create and craft a definition for myself about what was lazy. And I came up with this definition. When someone has the ability to do something, they're capable, and they know that they ought to be doing something, but they're unwilling to do so, or they choose not to because of the extra effort involved. So it does require extra effort to do the I'm going to call it the right thing, because I was doing the wrong things for all the wrong reasons. Let me give you a couple of examples of how we use busyness as as an excuse or as laziness. And the first one is just that: it's an excuse. It gets us out of the commitments that we've made to the people that are important to us, the people that we love. I mean, how often did I say, sorry, mommy can't, go to your game, or, go on your field trip or whatever, because I'm busy. And if you're not a parent, I mean, how often have you used that busyness as an excuse to get out of doing something with a partner, a spouse, a boss, what have you? It's like a get out of free card or get out of jail free card from Monopoly. You whip it out and people understand, oh, they get it because, you're busy. But it's like I said, I used to use it as a way of not having to look at the changes I would have to make in my life to find more balance. The second way I think we use busyness as laziness is explaining somehow that we're not in control, or that we don't have a choice in the matter. There's no mindfulness or intentionality when you let external forces or other people's schedules dictate what you do. Now, I know that kind of sounds impossible, because if you have a job and you're working for somebody else, your schedule isn't your own. If you're caring for parents or children, your schedule isn't your own. If you're a business owner, your schedule isn't your own. But if you always are letting other people's schedules or external factors dictate, what you're doing when you're doing it, then my suggestion would be to take a step back, look underneath what might be there that you're not addressing that needs some time and attention. The third way I think that we use busyness as laziness is by not prioritizing appropriately. Many of you may remember the time matrix that Stephen Covey in his book, 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, put forward many years ago, where he talks about, those things that are urgent, important, not important. And it's easy for us to spend time in that urgent, important box, because that's where our deadlines, our crisis, the immediate demands are. We have to pay attention and focus on those things. It's also easy to spend time in the not urgent, not important box, because that's where we chill out, we relax, we binge watch TV, we take our mind off of everything. It's much harder to spend time in that not urgent but important box. And this is what Stephen Covey refers to as the place where we sharpen our saw. It's where we do our planning and problem prevention. We work on our, important relationships. Since we don't naturally go there, it's important that we think about it, be mindful, schedule time to pay attention to things that fall into that box rather than just the mindless things that we often do when we are escaping. And it's important because by doing that, we're just procrastinating on doing the things that are really important but not urgent in our life.
I love the way you went through that and aligned this to the principles that Stephen Covey taught so many years ago, because they are it's so simple,
timeless,
yet it's so hard.
Yes.
And that we end up being, so often we are either in our comfort zone, in that place where we're, as you described it, binge watching, just kind of hanging out, and not doing much, right? Not taking action. Or we are like in Uber action and just reacting instead of responding to things. So I'm so glad that you put it in those terms for us, because I think that's a great reminder to think about how do we kind of categorize all of the stuff that we do. Now, you just mentioned procrastination, and that is that's another kind of dirty word, like lazy, right? We don't like to be called procrastinators, and we don't like to think of ourselves as procrastinators. So what should we know about procrastination? What have you learned?
Yeah. Procrastination is about deferring commitments, sort of, even though we know that there might be negative consequences. If you simply postpone a task because you've got a good, constructive, or strategic reason, that's not procrastination. Procrastination comes when there's a cost associated from that deferral. If you put off your taxes because you haven't gathered all the information, together or whatever, that's postponing it. But if you postpone it so long that you are now incurring a fine, that's procrastination. And sometimes it's not a hard cost like money. Sometimes it can be shame or regret. I mean, there's other costs, if you will, associated with putting something off. There's many ways that we procrastinate. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of the notion of analysis paralysis, where we, gather data, research, keep, spinning wheels, and we never use it to make a decision. There's very, very few things in life that require so much research or the perfect answer. We just need to get going, get moving, make a small decision rather than staying in that spinning of the wheels and researching.
Right. What about people who say, and I know many of these, I have to admit, I am sometimes like this too, where we work better under pressure.
I hear that line too. I know I've even said it, but it's a lie. I mean, no one works better under pressure. No one is in their zone of genius when they're stressed or feeling pressure. And so the research simply doesn't support it. In fact, it's just the opposite. Stress actually makes things harder on your brain. It clogs it up. It interferes with our ability to learn and to translate ideas into meaningful information. There's study after study that repeatedly shows that people under stress are more likely to make errors. People just procrastinate because they don't want to deal with the underlying emotion that they might feel if they actually face whatever it is that they're putting off. The other thing I want to remind people of is think about it also in terms of the message that you're sending other people when you're procrastinating. Whether it's to your family or your team or your business associate, associates, you may think that you're saying, oh, look how super important I am or in how much in demand I am. But in reality, you're just sending a message that says you're unavailable and overwhelmed. There's really nothing good about trying to, be so busy, or saying that you're doing it intentionally because you work better under pressure. It's just not true.
Yeah, and heaven forbid somebody pegs you as lazy, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah, yeah, and that's possible if you are a master procrastinator. Yeah. All right. So I'd love to hear your perspective. I speak to a lot of clients who are dealing with a lot of change as a result of this pandemic. So from your perspective, how has it impacted your clients and the way you help them?
So, I mean, that's a great and timely question. And it's changed over this last 18 months or so. When the pandemic first hit, on the one hand, it gave us a gift. It gave us time with our family, time alone. I know not everyone saw it as a gift, but last year people were faced with a lot of panic and anxiety, and I mean, even death in some cases. Certainly things that we weren't used to dealing with, and we were juggling, working from home. Schooling our kids from home, everyone being in the house at the same time, and there's no place to go, no place to escape. And what showed up for a lot of people, for my clients, was just exhaustion and a lot of fear. And
And
fortunately, yeah,
and
we've
a different kind, excuse me, and a different kind of exhaustion.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so the good news is that we have moved on from there. There is, and now with my clients, a new sense of hope, a renaissance, if you will, because things are starting to open up as people get vaccinated, et cetera. And they're no longer acting out of fear, or they no longer want to act out of fear. They're tired of, second guessing themselves, wondering if do they have what it takes to go through another disappointment or loss or struggle or challenge. And they want to get out from the restrictions, either that were imposed on them or that they imposed on themselves. And so, I see people and I hear people talking about wanting more ease and joy in their life. And if we've learned anything from COVID, is that life is short and we don't want to look back with any kind of regret.
I think that's so true. We're kind of sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yes.
Yeah. I hear that a lot. I feel that personally. We all do, I think. And I think we also, a lot of us feel like we don't want to go back to what was the status quo. We're thinking and feeling differently about what we do for a living, how we manage that harmony between our work lives and the rest of our lives, and how we fit it in. So I know you've saved some tips for us, and there's one last thing that I want to do in this conversation with you, and that is to hear your practical tips for all of us. This is the part of this show that our loyal listeners really wait to hear, because of the practical tools and techniques that my guests share with us. And frankly, it's why I call this show Tips for the Transition. So um, we've just talked about the pandemic, and I would love to hear what your first tip is to just guide our listeners to take the next step. What's your advice for them?
Well, the first one is always easier said than done, but it's start small, but start. So I know for chronic procrastinators like myself, often the first step is the hardest, getting started. We wait for a burst of inspiration, but it never comes. And if I've learned anything from the work I've done on myself and working with my clients, it's that motivation comes after you begin. So once you're in motion, then you can build on that. So if you're saying, oh my gosh, I've got to read a book, I've got to read a chapter, and that seems daunting, well, just read a page, but start reading. If it's exercise, you want to get into shape, but going to the gym seems daunting, well, do a sit-up or a push-up, do something, and then tomorrow do 2 of them. Take a walk, do something.
Right.
Start, but start small. For me, the challenge is often about writing. I stare at this blank screen and think I want to write 100 words, and it just seems impossible. But I set a timer for 5 minutes and I write, and very often when the buzzer goes off, I will keep writing, because you get motivated once you're in motion.
Right.
So my first tip is start small, but start.
Just start.
Yeah.
I
The
think
second,
that's such sound advice.
yeah.
And it doesn't take much.
No, it can be
like you
something
just
very
said.
simple. Yes.
Set a timer, go for a walk around the block, whatever it is that you set a goal to do. But start, take that
Yeah.
small step. Love that. Great advice. All right.
The
What's your
next thing
one?
I'll tell you is know what's important to you. Do the work to define your core values. Write them down. Use them as a touchstone. Look at your calendar and see, where are you spending your time and attention, and set some boundaries. If you're out of whack as I was, just start small, but start taking some action to make some changes to get back in balance, back in integrity, back in alignment with yourself.
Another good one. There's, that we can't do anything. We can't do anything better until we know who we are and what we value most.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so, and then figure out where we want to go.
Yeah.
And start small, but start. Yeah.
Got another one for
What
you.
else?
There's a great book by a guy named Nir Eyal called Indistractable. And it's about understanding the reasons why we do the things that are against our best interest. And he talks about, how do we, first of all, know ourselves well enough to know what those triggers are, but then also, how do we prevent those distractions from getting in our way? It's a great book for anybody who finds themselves often distracted by shiny objects. or just not able to put down an electronic device, even knowing that they're wasting time doing something mindless. It's a great book. And then my final tip would be around getting enough sleep. It's so hard for us to be at our best when we're tired. It's, to be in control, and to make good choices, you need to be at your best. And when your energy is low, so is your willpower. And it's so much easier to get distracted and to procrastinate when you're tired. So, many of the habits that we've fallen into during the pandemic around, spending time on devices and other things have actually made it harder to get to sleep, because we're disrupting our sleep patterns by staring at blue light screens and that sort of things. And this, the whole sleep, the idea of getting enough sleep was really my Achilles heel for so many years. I kept thinking that, well, there's 24 hours in every day. I'm very busy, so I'll use as many as I can to get stuff done, and I'll sleep later. Well, sleep is not a luxury. It's not something that you can put off until later.
Right.
It's a necessity, and there's tons of research out there that suggests that, again, a lack of sleep leads to, accidents and illness, and it impacts our learning and our retention of information and our ability to focus. It's important to find a way to get enough sleep.
Yeah, and quite honestly, it is the very first step to self-care.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
if we're not taking care of ourselves the way we should to be our best selves, then we can't give to others the way
Yes.
we want to give to them,
Right.
right? Because we don't have the capacity if we're not taking care of ourselves, and sleep is just the number one, the very first step in that.
Yep. And it reminds
Great.
me of, the airplane
Yeah,
notice, put your own mask on first. That's exactly what we're talking about.
absolutely.
And then
This,
finally, just, a note that seeking, having an accountability partner can really help you stay focused and committed and get the stuff done
yeah,
that is important to you. Um,
yeah,
it's not just okay to ask for help. I think sometimes it's imperative that we don't try and go it alone. There's so many things that are tough, that we deal with on a regular basis. And if you can ask for help, if you can sometimes buy help, if the lawn's not getting mowed, hire somebody to, mow the
right,
lawn.
right.
There's ways of getting stuff off your plate so that you can focus on the things that are really important to you.
Yeah.
And if it's challenging for you to do that, then get an accountability partner, a friend, a colleague, just a partner, somebody who you can make a commitment to, and then know that they're going to be there to support you and to check in on you and to offer any support and advice that they can to help you get to where you're going.
Margo, all of those, such great advice. Thank you so much for sharing all of that and your perspective on busy is the new lazy, and procrastination. I really appreciate you being here and sharing all of that so generously with our audience today.
My pleasure.
I would love to have you share also what the one best way for someone to reach out to you. So, what is that for you?
My website, www.greatleadercoaching.com, and I'm very active on LinkedIn as well.
All right, and we're going to put the LinkedIn link up there for you
Perfect.
as well. Great Leader Coaching on LinkedIn as well as on your website. That's fabulous. Thank you so much again. I really have enjoyed this conversation so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it as well.
All right. And for those of you who are watching and listening, I appreciate you being a part of our community here. As a career and life coach, I love creating these episodes as resources for women. And as I mentioned at the beginning of today's episode, I design every show to help you navigate career and life challenges. So if you want more information about Margo, she told you what her website is and her LinkedIn link. At the in the show notes, you can get all of the links for Margo and to connect with me as well. So please take a look at the show notes and feel free to click on any of those links and continue the conversation with us. I believe it's our time to thrive. Will you join me on that ride? I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, and we'll be here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. So join us again. We are turning transition into triumph.